everybody. Welcome to the Iron Deep podcast. I'm Mike Stansbury. Today, my special guest, a guest you guys know, Brett Snodgrass. Brett has a book coming out, guys. This is awesome. It's called The Secret War Within. This book is about faith, ambition, and surrender. Brett Snodgrass, how are you, sir?
Fantastic, Michael. Thanks for having me on the podcast, man. I'm ready to rock.
Let's go. This is the first time you ever done something like this before? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. Thanks for doing this. This is exciting. This is a milestone moment for me. Written a book, Secret War Within. It's a real, truthful, raw, honest, introspective book of a driven man's heart. And I'm excited to let the world read it. Comes out September the 19th, so not sure when you're listening to this. This is 2023, but excited for this, man.
Yeah, so it'll be on all the platforms. Will be on Amazon. How would somebody get this book? What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, Amazon is going to be the best bet. This is a self-published book through Amazon, so that's the best bet. But it will be on the other platforms if you go online and Barnes & Noble and whatever platform you find your books. But I would encourage you to go to Amazon to get it. It's called The Secret War Within. It's an allegory book, so a very different book than probably a Christian business owner would write. Wrote it in a kind of an allegory, fictional way, kind of like The Shack or the Narnia or that type of adventure type of series. I would just go to Amazon. You can also go to our website, irondeep.com. We have a page on there that you can order it, but it'll take it through Amazon as well.
Okay, so the genesis of this. So when did the idea pop in your head and says, you know what, I think I may write a book? How did that come about?
Yeah. I think everyone has a book in them. I think everyone wants kind of maybe to bear their soul on paper. I am not an English student, literary person. I'm probably a C, grade C or C minus English student. So I'm not a writer. I'm more of a podcaster, more of a video guy or a speaker. But you can really kind of transfer that into a book. But this really kind of happens. So if you heard a little bit about my story, about 3 or 4 years ago, I was able to step out into the owner's box of the real estate business, and just gave me some space, gave me some margin and time to reflect and pray and think kind of in this transitional time. I had seen some other business guys or real estate guys write a book, and I've always had an interest in it. I never thought I could actually sit down and do it. I think that's a huge project. And I'm kind of, everywhere sometimes, and I didn't think I could actually take the time to finish it. So what happened was one of my friends at real estate, Nathan Brooks, actually introduced me to a writing coach. So this is not a ghostwriter. I actually did write the book. It's not a ghostwriter, but it's a writing coach, someone to coach you through writing and what does the process look like. And so I was kind of interested in that. So I hired a writing coach named Ashley, and we sat down at the beginning of 2022, and there was many early mornings that I sat and I was writing this book, and really I wanted it to be kind of a different book than a normal Christian book you would see on your bookshelf at Barnes & Noble. I wanted it to be kind of raw. I wanted it to be truthful. I wanted it to really resonate with men's hearts that are, driven or leaders. So that's the book. It has a lot of different things of my own life in there. The main character's name's Nolan Banks, but I am not Nolan Banks. He does a lot of things that I didn't do or I would not do, but he has done some things that I have done. So it does represent a little bit of my own story, my own experiences. And I wanted it to be, just a book for men, and I wanted it really just to go into the man's heart, and that's why it's called The Secret War Within. And it just really just talks about this secret battle that men face, and that we're kind of battling, but we don't really talk about.
Right.
It's kind of what the book is.
Because we don't like to get vulnerable, do we?
Right.
Yeah, it's tough because we're all alphas, and nothing's wrong with us. We're just
That's
great.
right.
Everything's good. So
That's right.
Nolan Banks, the character. So tell us about kind of the some of the trials that he goes through. What are some things that he's experienced, and how do you pull him? How does he pull himself, or what happens
Hmm.
to Nolan?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so Nolan Banks is a real estate developer, has very driven individual, and started a business and became highly successful. So he was highly influential, highly known in his community. People respected him. He was involved with charity projects and had a really nice home on the water. His dream home, built it, a mansion. On the water, had a beautiful family, wife named Liz, 2 kids. Everything was picture perfect in his life. But the journey really starts off of him Friday night at his office. Had just celebrated or just had one of the best months he's ever had in the business. But and he was getting interviewed by an intern, and this kid was so excited about all the success and accomplishments, and he was looking at all of his awards and recognition and plaques and all the things that he had done. But then on the inside, after the intern had left, you start to really see what was going on and how he felt empty. He felt he was still comparing himself with other people. He had a void that he couldn't quite fill, that no amount of success, and he was just kind of battling, why do I feel this way? What is missing in my life? And really that's the part, and kind of goes through and has some secrets in his life, and we dive into that in the book about we get to see some of the darkness in Nolan's heart, that he is struggling with some addictions, that he's struggling with some things that he would never let out. So really, that's where the story begins. And then a friend invites him, gives him an invitation on this journey, on this adventure. And that's really where the story is about. It's about this adventure, and it's an allegorical story where he meets in allegory form Papa, who is basically God the Father, meets Joshua, who is Christ, and meets Ma, who is the Holy Spirit, and basically goes through this journey to build that intimate relationship with them, and by the end, obviously finds that deeper connection and relationship with God, and really that's what the story, the adventure is about.
Okay, so this book intended for men, and there are elements in there where every man can find a situation that maybe Nolan was in. So with that being said, this book is directed to guys like us,
Hmm.
or who else is this for?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this book, has a lot. I wrote it really directed toward kind of that driven male individual. Maybe it's a business owner, maybe it's a leader of an organization, maybe it's a high level CEO, but I think every man would get a lot out of this particular book. So whatever level you're at, you sometimes have these secrets, this battle that you're kind of facing in your own life. Like, are you enough, or you're battling with your faith? And even as Christians, sometimes we wrestle with certain questions on our faith. I know I've wrestled with my faith at times. So I think this is really geared towards men. But really, anyone could read this, because really at the end, it's really about developing the missing piece, the God-sized hole in our hearts and in our lives, that to fill the void, to fill the emptiness, is really just that intimacy with the Father, intimacy with Christ, and what does that look like? So I kind of painted the picture of what that looks like to me. Honestly. So I painted the allegory kind of pictures of God, of Christ, of the Holy Spirit, of maybe how I might view them in my own life, and maybe that could help you view them in a more close way, in a more intimate way, in a more gentle way, in a more, as they guide you on this journey. And this is again, this is a real raw book. Nolan goes through a lot of trials throughout the book. So basically, in the adventure, they take him on 3 different trials, and these trials, I think, are again trials that men battle with. So I kind of take him into that picture of, these 3 things that men that I even battle with in my own life, and we kind of see him struggle through these different trials on this adventure.
So this is your first book.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have learned something about yourself while writing it. So what are some of the moments for you as you're writing this? Did you ever get that? You had a writing coach, but did you ever get that writer's block? Did you ever feel like maybe you got a third through it and you were like, I don't know if I can finish this? Or did you have any doubts at all that you would finish it? Or tell me about the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was dozens of times that I thought about throwing in the towel, that I didn't know if I could finish this, and it was just such a great thing to have a coach, to have an accountability person, because if they weren't really pushing me or having some sort of accountability or expectations of me, I probably wouldn't have finished. And I think that was a huge blessing in my life, to have someone guiding me through it. The parts that I loved about it was I loved getting into the creative space. It was really nice, going and just spending time in prayer with God. Is like, what do you want me to lay out on this page? How do I view you? What are you saying to me that might speak into these other men's lives? That was just a really cool, intimate moments that I had. And there was moments that I was in my closet writing or down in my basement writing, and I just loved getting into that creative space. Now, the interesting thing is that sometimes it's hard to get into that creative space. And so did I get a block with that? Yeah, sometimes. Usually that comes when you got too many things going on. I got too many things on my mind. I'm distracted by a lot of different things. And that's when it was very difficult for me to get into that creative space and to put the words on the paper, I would say. But when you're in that space and you're in your groove and you're in your flow, I don't know, just that sweet moment when you just start writing. And I think she gave me, or someone said, hey, just write down 500 crappy words a day. And sometimes we didn't get much out of the day where it wasn't that great. But then sometimes it just kind of came out beautifully. So just getting it down and getting the sand is, she recommended, when you're first writing it out, just getting the sand in the sandbox. Don't worry about structuring it. Don't worry about all the stuff. We're going to build the castle later. And I think that was really, really cool. So really the first 4 to 6 months, I just got it all out there. It was really messy. And then the last probably 6 to 12 months, we've been kind of building the castle and structuring it in a way that is nice. So.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it. Because whenever you're playing with little kids in the sandbox, I mean, really, what are you doing? It's and then you actually I remember when the kids were 3 or 4, and you wanted to build something cool, and they just wanted to play in it, and that's what then dump it.
Yeah.
And then you look down the way, and there's just one guy, and he's building like the castle from Disney World, and it just looks awesome. Like, how is that guy doing that? Well, I guess he just started playing in the sand.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome. So, fully surrender to God. So, some of the themes you have in the book, and Nolan goes through this. What does it mean as the author of this book, and if you were to communicate this to the audience here, what does fully surrendered mean? To be fully surrendered to God? How does that look in your life or in this character's life?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think some of the things that I struggle with, and that Nolan really, really struggled with is, he could maybe talk to God about certain things, but there was certain things that he just really wanted to keep control of. One of the things that, especially as entrepreneurs and business owners, we struggle with wealth and with money and that having a control over us, and we want to make it and we want to grow it and we want to keep it, and we struggle even when we have made a lot of it, to struggle to really let God have that. So this is something that Nolan had a really hard time, and the physical aspects of it, that he had a physical object that he was carrying, and he had a very difficult time letting it go. Like, he would just grip it extremely tight. And I think so. Wealth and money is one thing. There's so many different verses about people in general, but men struggling with, who's going to be your master, right? Is it going to be money, or is it going to be God? Who are you going to surrender to? Who's going to control your own desires? Do you have more of a desire of building wealth, or do you have more of a desire to have an intimate relationship with your Creator? So that's just one of the things I think that we struggle with. Another thing that I struggle with, that Nolan struggles with, that men want to be known.
Right.
They want to be influential. They want to be remembered. They want to be recognized. I think that even sometimes, for even myself, I struggle maybe with that even more than money. I think just during this season of my life, like, I've made a lot of money. Maybe it's lost some of the zest in my life, that it doesn't have as much control over me. But again, now you come back to some of the pride of, I want to be known, I want to be recognized, I want to be remembered by people, I want to impact people's lives. And sometimes we can even go, and this is a good thing, that I want to impact people in a positive way, but at the end of the day, it's because I want to be remembered and I want to feel good about myself. So this is another thing that Nolan struggled with, that he had a hard time surrendering his own influence in his life, his power. Even when Christ was tempted by the devil tempted him with influence and with power. And I'll let you lead this whole region, the whole world, right? The kingdoms of the world you can lead. Like, it's power, it's influence, and this is what we're tempted with. So that was another thing that Nolan struggled with, and that secret war within. Like, we'll never say that. Like, I think I heard a preacher talk about that, all the sins in the world, people can talk about lust, or men can go in, they can talk about, man, I struggle with lust, or I struggle with this, but no one really talks about, I struggle with greed. Like, I struggle with, like, no one talks
greedy.
about that. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
And then the last thing was really, and this comes down to family. And I know, Michael, you talk about family too. And again, so, the first two things, influence, money, but then the surrender even your own family over to God. And, we want to, you can have these things, Lord, but don't take my family. Like, how could you do that? Or how could you let that happen to my kids, or why did you, or my wife, or my family? And sometimes we don't want to let that go, and that's a tough one, honestly. And we want to control that. So really, the book really goes into complete surrender, and I kind of chose those three things because I feel like that's probably what I struggle with the most is surrendering my money to God, my influence and power to God, and then my family to God. And that's kind of what he goes through in this book.
Yeah, and it all predicates. Anytime you're struggling with any kind of thing, greed, like, we just the radical honesty to say, you know what, to sit with another man that maybe you trust and say, I have a problem with greed. That to me just seems like, oh, that doesn't. How would that whole conversation work out?
Yeah.
But so it's like, oh, so when you laid that on me, I'm like, oh, okay. But I do see elements of that, because it's, as entrepreneurs, one of the things, and we've talked about this in other podcasts about that shiny object syndrome. We get enamored with other people's businesses, their ideas. Hey, they're doing this over there. Oh, can I do that? I wonder if I could do that and this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it is. I think that's, hey, you know what? And sometimes, so if we're not greedy, what are we? I guess we're content.
Hmm.
And that's what we need to rest in. And the Bible has a lot to say about contentment. So
I think one of the things that maybe to ask yourself, really radical honesty, is can you celebrate other people's successes genuinely? Genuinely, like, can you, when another man is successful, can you genuinely celebrate him? I think that if you can get to really that point and genuinely in your heart celebrate someone else doing well, um, and not thinking about yourself, then that's, maybe that start of humility, and that's that start of surrendering to God's desires for your life. So,
that's good. Yeah. All right. So, Brett, what advice? Let's say somebody reads this book and they're feeling stuck in that cycle, and a cycle of just of striving, of trying to get things done, of just looking at the next thing, and they get up every morning and the first thing on their mind is all the tasks and
mm,
all the people, the processes, and the things that are associated with their work. How does somebody get out of that
mm-hmm,
cycle? How do they get out of that void?
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think so. One of the trials that Nolan goes through is that he has to spend a certain amount of time just really in solitude with the Father, and so I think that's just a great part. So that daily solitude with God, that daily intimacy with Him, making sure you're carving that out in your life and starting that way. So I think it's just you have to be with Him in order to build a relationship with someone. You have to be with them. You need to study them and research them, and if you really want that deeper connection with them, what does that look like for your life? Is to be with Him, to study Him and the words, to talk to Him, to have conversations with Him. So the book goes through that. And then obviously, we started Iron Deep, right? And it's really just being around other people. You've talked about this in the last episode, is being around other people that can sharpen you, that can continue to push you forward. And it's so many times like, I get around guys and that encourage me, that help me and push me forward and sharpen me, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, I'm good now. Okay, I'm great. Maybe I don't need that as much, and then I get out of it, and I'm like, man, I really need those guys in my life. It's just that continuous journey with other men in your life, I think, is just so important, and the book talks about that a little bit. And one of the things I think is just a healing thing to encourage men is, yeah, just that vulnerability piece is, I think, and I don't even know what it's like. Sometimes I'm a pretty vulnerable person, but what's that like for the man listening to this right now, that no one knows that secret that he won't let out, right? That no one knows. Maybe it's an addiction thing. Maybe it's a self-worth thing. Maybe it's I don't know, whatever he has in his life, that just being able to talk through that, and to be vulnerable with someone in their life, just to have them encouraged, I think is really, really good. Another thing in the book that Nolan goes through is he has to face certain things in his past. Now, I got told one time you don't want to stare at your past because, and then, dwell on it. But I think it's good. Part of being the Iron Deep process is to look at certain things that we have in our past, that maybe we have shame or guilt or whatever's dragging us down, and can we lay that down? Again, it goes back to that surrender. Can we lay that down? So part of the process is, what's that look like for you? Maybe you have hurt, disappointment, shame, guilt. Maybe there's broken relationships in your life. There's certain addictions that maybe you had once. You've hurt people, or whatever it looks like. Can you take that, and can you lay that down and surrender that? So those are just a couple of aspects of the book that, again, this is a raw, honest, radical truth book of a man's life. So if you want to kind of go through that journey, I think, a lot of men are going to really resonate with Nolan Banks as he lays certain things down. I would encourage you to go through that process. What's that look like to lay down in your life? Do you need to go through, a surrender and talk, and get that guys group and just talk about some of the struggles, and what surrender look like for you. So yeah, I would just give you some of that feedback.
Awesome. All right. So this is the first book. Are there any plans for a sequel? Are we building something here? What does that look like? Or is this just, hey, I did this, checking it off the list, and I'm done? What's next for Brett
Yeah.
Snodgrass?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, this is really really cool. So right now we're just kind of just launched this out, and we're gonna kind of see how this goes. I mean, really, I'm not looking to be a number one best-selling author, New York Times, whatever. That you can pick this off of Barnes and Noble shelf. This is really kind of that introduction into kind of what we're doing with Iron Deep. Honestly, this some of our core values at Iron Deep is radical honesty, and this book kind of shares that, and it's kind of this introduction into Iron Deep, where again it kind of has this man. He gets invited into something. He goes, so it kind of represents some of the Iron Deep aspects of the events that we put on with Iron Deep. So really, it's just kind of that introduction into the community and the organization that we're building. Is there a second book or a sequel? I don't know. I have a lot of ideas. Will we put it into a book or something different? I don't know, but I definitely enjoyed the writing process, and I think it's just really cool to kind of bare your soul on paper. And then some people said, writing a book is like the only thing that people can, take to bed with them, right? Is because they read this into their quiet time. So it's just kind of cool that someone might read some of my thoughts or words, and it might maybe change their perspective on kind of God and Christ and the Holy Spirit, and maybe how they view him. Maybe a lot of men, I think they see is distance, right? And I see more that intimacy, and this really kind of brings you into that. What does that look like? That intimate relationship with God. And hopefully maybe it can change your point of view on that. So I'd say your next step, my encouragement is hopefully you can get the book, read the book, and then check out Iron Deep. And that's just what we're trying to build, this brotherhood organization of sharpening each other with Christian like-minded leader guys. So
September 19th. It's on Amazon, self-published book. It's fantastic to have you here on the Iron Deep
no, thanks,
podcast,
Dan.
Brett Snodgrass. And folks, again, thank you for watching and listening. And if you know a guy that a friend of yours that may be interested in hearing this message, share this with them, and maybe share the book with them as well, because everybody's going through a journey. Everybody has a story, and sometimes we need those stories in our lives to have the to open us up, to help us become more vulnerable, and to be radically honest with God and with each other. So again, thanks for listening to the Iron Deep podcast. I'm Mike Stansbury with Brett Snodgrass. See you guys.
See you guys.